While digging, a boy finds a rare rock that leads to an unprecedented historical discovery. Jake grumbled under his breath as he wiped the sweat from his forehead, trudging up the rocky hillside. This wasn't how he'd imagined his summer, definitely not after the fight he'd had with his parents. Instead of playing video games with his friends or lounging by the pool, here he was, stuck in the middle of nowhere with Uncle Mike. Of all people. It was his punishment, he figured, for letting his grades tank last semester, especially in science. His parents had called it an educational opportunity, but Jake knew better. They wanted to teach him a lesson, and spending 2 weeks learning about rocks with his overly enthusiastic geologist uncle was their idea of the perfect solution. "Remember what I taught you about mineral deposits?" Uncle Mike asked, handing Jake a small shovel and a pair of safety goggles. Jake rolled his eyes, but couldn't completely ignore the flicker of excitement in his uncle's voice. As much as he hated to admit it, Uncle Mike's enthusiasm was starting to get to him. The guy practically lit up whenever he talked about rocks, his gray eyes sparkling as if every mineral deposit held the secrets of the universe. After a week of non-stop lessons, Jake was surprised to find himself actually getting it. There was something oddly satisfying about understanding how the Earth worked, how millions of years shaped the land beneath their feet. One morning, Uncle Mike announced, "Today's the day we put your skills to the test," spreading out a detailed geological survey map across the hood of his truck. His weathered hands traced along the contour lines as he explained their route. "Remember the safety protocols. Stay within the marked areas, and don't hesitate to ask questions." His excitement was almost contagious as he looked up at Jake with that characteristic spark in his eyes. Jake adjusted his backpack, mentally running through the checklist Uncle Mike had drilled into him. After spending days with mineral charts and practicing on sample rocks, he felt more prepared than he'd thought he'd be. Begrudgingly, he had to admit, this was kind of cool. The morning sun beat down on their backs as they worked steadily through the rocky terrain. Uncle Mike had been meticulous, spending weeks poring over maps, testing soil samples, and dividing the area into neat little grids, each section marked on his map like some kind of treasure hunt. Red flags dotted the landscape, highlighting the most promising spots, and Jake had been assigned to work in Quadrant C, where the readings looked particularly good. Jake knelt in his assigned spot, his uncle's advice ringing in his ears. "Start slow. Be patient. The Earth doesn't give up its secrets easily." He began by gently brushing away loose dirt in a grid pattern, just as he was taught. His mind wandered until suddenly something different caught his eye. A flash of color different from the usual white and gray of the quartz they'd been digging up all morning. His heart raced as he remembered Uncle Mike's warning about following proper procedures when discovering something unusual. Staying calm, Jake switched from his large shovel to smaller tools. He documented his progress by marking his spot on the map and taking pictures, just like Uncle Mike had drilled into him. With painstaking care, he began digging around the strange object. When the last bit of dirt fell away, his breath caught in his throat. There, nestled in the soil, was a stunning green crystal, unlike anything he'd seen in his Uncle Mike's endless rock collection. But it wasn't just its size or color that stunned him. It was something about the way it seemed to capture the light, as if it had a life of its own. "Uncle Mike!" Jake called out, his voice echoing across the dig site. "I think I found something. You've got to see this." Uncle Mike hurried over, his experienced eyes widening as he saw Jake's discovery. He crouched down, examining the crystal without touching it. "In 40 years of studying geology, I've never seen anything like this," he muttered, pulling out his phone to take pictures. "The structure, the color, it's completely unique." Jake beamed with pride, feeling a surge of excitement at the thought of discovering something so rare. But his smile quickly faded as he noticed his uncle's worried expression. "Is something wrong?" Jake asked, his voice a mix of excitement and concern. "Not wrong exactly," Uncle Mike said slowly, still studying the glowing crystal. "But this isn't a normal mineral formation. The fact that it's glowing, almost generating light, this could be something entirely new. We need to get some experts to look at this." He carefully helped Jake wrap the crystal in a protective cloth before placing it in his field collection bag. After securing the wrapped crystal in his field collection bag, Uncle Mike meticulously photographed the dig site and noted the GPS coordinates. "We need to document exactly where we found it," he said, marking the location on his map. They packed their equipment and left the site. The hike back was quiet, with Jake wondering why his uncle seemed both excited and anxious. At the truck, Uncle Mike locked the field bag in a secure compartment before loading the rest of their gear. The ride back to the house was filled with excited speculation. Jake's mind raced with possibilities. Had he discovered a new type of mineral? Would they name it after him? But Uncle Mike remained unusually quiet, making several phone calls in hushed tones. When they pulled up to Uncle Mike's cabin, Jake noticed an unfamiliar car in the gravel driveway. A woman stepped out and introduced herself as Dr. Emily, a mineralogist from the state university. "I came as soon as Mike sent me the photos," she explained, her eyes fixed on the collection bag. "May I see the crystal?" Uncle Mike carefully unwrapped the crystal and Dr. Emily gasped. She pulled out various instruments from her bag, magnifying glasses, a UV light, some kind of scanner, and examined the crystal from every angle. Her expression grew more amazed by the minute. "This is extraordinary," she finally said, looking up at Jake. "Young man, do you understand what you found?" Jake shook his head, both proud and nervous about all the attention. "This crystal structure is unlike anything in our geological records. The molecular arrangement, it shouldn't be able to glow on its own. It's producing its own energy. And there's something else." She switched off the cabin lights and turned on her UV lamp. The crystal began to pulse, with a soft green glow, creating intricate patterns on the walls. A collective gasp filled the room. Jake reached out to touch one of the light patterns, but Dr. Emily gently stopped her. "We need to be very careful," she explained. "This crystal isn't just fluorescent, it's generating its own energy. We have to analyze it thoroughly." The next few days were a whirlwind. News of Jake's discovery spread through the scientific community. More researchers arrived daily, setting up sophisticated equipment around the dig site in a frantic search for similar specimens. Despite using advanced ground-penetrating radar and electromagnetic sensors and even bringing in specialized mining equipment, no other crystals were found. This only made Jake's discovery even more extraordinary and puzzling. Teams of geologists, physicists, and even astronomers worked around the clock, analyzing soil samples and rock formations, trying to understand how this unique crystal had formed. The international media descended upon the small town, turning Jake's quiet summer vacation into headline news. As theories circulated about the crystal's origins, ranging from ancient geological processes to extraterrestrial materials, Jake found himself at the center of what scientists were calling the mineralogical discovery of the century. Uncle Mike couldn't have been prouder, though he often reminded the enthusiastic researchers that his nephew's careful adherence to proper excavation techniques had made this remarkable find possible. Jake's parents flew in from the city, both concerned and proud of their son's involvement in what was becoming a major scientific event. His mom hugged him tight when she arrived. "My little geologist," she said with tears in her eyes. "Your grandfather would have been so proud." The mention of his grandfather stirred something in Jake's memory. The old man had been a geologist too, spending years exploring remote caves and dig sites around the world. He'd passed away when Jake was young, leaving behind boxes of research notes that no one had ever bothered to read. That night, unable to sleep with all the excitement, Jake started going through his grandfather's old journals that his mom had brought along. As he flipped through the pages, his heart nearly stopped. There, in a journal dated 30 years ago, was a sketch of a similar crystal formation found in a remote mountain range, but never fully documented. Jake showed the journals to Uncle Mike the next day, spreading them across the kitchen table. They spent hours going through the notes, with Uncle Mike growing more excited with each page. His grandfather had documented similar mineral formations in various locations but had never been able to collect enough specimens for a proper scientific study. The discovery made waves in the scientific community. Mineralogists and geochemists worked to understand the crystal's unique properties and formation conditions. The research suggested that these crystals formed under extremely specific geological conditions, requiring a rare combination of pressure, temperature, and mineral composition that had never been documented before. Now homeschooled at the research facility, Jake spent afternoons helping Dr. Emily catalog new specimens and compare them with his grandfather's notes. The work was meticulous, but fascinating, and it was unlike anything Jake had imagined when he first resisted the idea of spending his summer digging with Uncle Mike. Back then, he couldn't have cared less about rocks or geology. He just wanted to stay home, away from all this educational enrichment his parents insisted on. But everything had changed. What once seemed like a boring chore had turned into something extraordinary. The complete analysis of the rare rock in crystal form represented an entirely new class of minerals formed through a previously unknown geological process. The discovery added to our understanding of Earth's mineral diversity and provided insights into ancient geological conditions that could help predict where similar formations might be found. Jake's discovery would be recorded in mineralogy textbooks as a groundbreaking find that represented an entirely new class of minerals. But for Jake, the most meaningful part wasn't the scientific recognition, it was validating his grandfather's work. The old man had been on the right track all along, chasing a mystery that no one else had fully understood. And now, years later, his grandson had helped complete the research he'd started. Jake had gone from a reluctant student to a key player in one of the most important geological discoveries of the century. One evening, as the sun set over the dig site where it all began, Dr. Emily found Jake sitting alone, holding the crystal he'd found. "What are you thinking about?" she asked, sitting beside him. "My grandfather," Jake replied. "He spent so much time searching for these, trying to understand what made them unique. I just got lucky." Dr. Emily smiled. "Science isn't just about luck, Jake. It's about being curious, asking questions, and being willing to see things differently than everyone else. Your grandfather had those qualities, and so do you." Jake nodded, looking at the crystal catching the last rays of sunlight, its natural green hue shimmering. His summer vacation had turned out differently than he'd expected. Instead of video games and swimming pools, he'd helped uncover a significant geological discovery that would contribute to our understanding of Earth's mineral formation processes. As research continued at the site, Jake realized that this was just the beginning of his journey in geology. There were still so many questions to answer about how these unique crystals formed and what they could tell us about Earth's geological history. He felt inspired by the teams of scientists working together, sharing information and ideas across countries and institutions. This was what real science looked like: careful observation, methodical research, and the excitement of discovering something new about our planet's amazing geological heritage. Looking at the site behind him, Jake felt a deep connection to the geological mysteries that had captivated his grandfather years ago. The crystal in his hands caught a final gleam of sunlight, its green color deepening in the growing darkness. Somewhere out there, more geological wonders were waiting to be discovered, and Jake knew that whatever came next, he would be part of that journey of scientific exploration and discovery. If you enjoyed this remarkable story about Jake's discovery of a unique mineral that advanced our understanding of Earth's geological history, don't forget to like, comment, and share. What other geological mysteries do you think are still waiting to be uncovered? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And stay tuned for more fascinating stories of scientific discovery and adventure. Remember to hit that subscribe button to never miss an update.